Mr. Jefferson, shift supervisor. I understand your plane's been hijacked?
Yes. I'm Todd Beamer. I'm on United Flight 93. We're over Ohio, maybe. The hijackers have knives, and they're in the cockpit flying the plane, I guess.
How many passengers are aboard this flight?
Maybe 40. Two are lying in the corridor. The captain and the first officer. Do you know what they want? Money? Or ransom, or what?
No, I don't.
Lisa, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Lisa, you call my wife and kids. And you tell them just in case.
I'll tell them what you told me.
What do you think, Lisa? Should we do it?
I stand behind you, Todd.
Let's roll. Come on, let's go already. Let's go.
In our society, on planet Earth, most stuff is just ordinary. No matter how popular we all are or what we do in life, at the end of the day, we're all just ordinary people. Which leaves some people to question, what would happen if you were known as a hero forever? Well, that question would be answered on a bright Tuesday morning on September 11th, 2001. On that day, 4 commercial airplanes became weapons. 2 of them crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A third plane crashed into the Pentagon near Washington, D.C. However, this story takes place on the 4th and last hijacked flight, United Airlines Flight 93. After learning about the previous attacks on the country, the passengers and crew realized that if they wanted to live, they had to do something. However, there was one man who put the definition and term of the word hero in immortality. And all it took from this man was courageous faith, a group of 39 other people, and 2 famous last words. Before we get into Todd Beamer's actions on United Airlines Flight 93, we must first talk about his early life. Todd Morgan Beamer was born on November 24th, 1968, in Flint, Michigan. He was the only son and middle child to his parents David and Peggy Jackson Beamer. Peggy Jackson was a muralist, while his father David was an IBM sales representative. Todd Beamer grew up with 2 sisters, Melissa and Michelle, who were raised with a strong biblical value system and work ethic. The family relocated to Poughkeepsie, New York, and then to Wayne, Illinois, a suburb west of Chicago, where David worked at Amdahl, a computer technology company. Beamer attended Wheaton Christian Grammar School, where he played numerous sports, including soccer, basketball, and baseball. He later attended Wheaton Academy, a Christian high school, from 1983 to 1985, where he excelled athletically. He was elected class vice president his junior year, in which afterwards David, his father, was promoted to vice president of Amdahl's California headquarters. As a result, the family moved, and Beamer spent his senior year at Los Gatos High School. This, interestingly, was also the exact same high school Mark Bingham went to, who would later become another major role in the Flight 93 revolt. Upon graduating high school in 1987, Beamer attended California State University in Fresno, where he majored in physical therapy and playing baseball in the hopes of playing professionally, but unfortunately, due to injuries he suffered in an automobile accident, those plans were ended. He later returned home to Illinois and transferred to Wheaton College, a Christian liberal arts college where he majored initially in medicine before switching to business. He continued to play baseball, however, and as a senior became captain of the basketball team. He later graduated in 1991. While at college, he met Lisa Brocius, his future wife, during a senior seminar class. Their first date was November 2nd, 1991. Beamer subsequently worked for Wilson Sporting Goods while taking night classes at DePaul University, earning an MBA in June 1993. Todd Beamer and Lisa Brocius officially became married on May 14, 1994, in Peekskill, New York. They later moved to Plainsboro, New Jersey, where Beamer began working with Oracle Corporation, selling systems, applications, and database software as a field marketing representative, and within months, he was promoted to account manager. Beamer and Lisa taught Sunday school at Princeton Alliance Church for 6 years and worked in youth ministry. Beamer also played on the church softball team. He was a staunch fan of the Chicago Cubs, Bulls, and Bears. In 2000, the Beamers moved to Cranberry, New Jersey with their 2 sons. By September of 2001, David was 3 and Andrew was a year and a half years old, with Lisa being pregnant with their 3rd child due in January of 2002. Beamer's work required him to travel up to 4 times a month, sometimes for as long as a week. In 2001, he earned a 5-day trip to Italy with his wife for being a top sales performer. They returned home on Monday, September 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Although Beamer could have left that night for a Tuesday business meeting in California, he opted instead to spend time with his wife. Little did he know that tomorrow would be his last day on Earth, along with 2,976 other souls. Right before we talk about Todd Beamer on United 93, a lot of people have a curious question. Why was Todd Beamer on Flight 93 in the first place? Well, as a software salesman, he decided to fly from Newark to San Francisco to meet with representatives of the Sony Corporation at 1 p.m. and planned to return on a red-eye flight that night. Todd Beamer left the house at 6:15 a.m., heading to Newark International Airport. He later arrived there and boarded United Airlines Flight 93, set to depart at 8 a.m. Approximately 1 minute behind schedule, United 93 was pushed back from the gate. And then, due to airport congestion, the flight was delayed further. By the time it was finally cleared for takeoff, it was 8:42 a.m. Just 4 minutes after takeoff, at 8:46 a.m., the unthinkable would happen. A commercial airplane full of passengers crashed into the northern face of the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City, causing a massive explosion. Most people at the time assumed it was an accident. However, that would all be proven wrong just 17 minutes later. With both towers of the World Trade Center now completely engulfed in flames, people made the horrifying discovery. This was not an accident. It was a coordinated terrorist attack. People at first were understandably shocked on how a terrorist could force a pilot to crash a plane full of people into a building. But little did some people know, however, that the planes were actually being flown by 19 terrorists from the extremist Islamist group Al-Qaeda. And little did everyone on United 93 know that there were 4 of them on their flight as well. As the attacks unfolded, Ben Sliney, the manager for the Federal Aviation Administration, called a national ground stop of all flights in the U.S. And air traffic officials began sending out warnings to the remaining 4,500 aircrafts in the air. At approximately 9:24 a.m., United Airlines dispatcher Ed Bellinger sent the following message.
Beware cockpit intrusion. 2 aircraft hit World Trade Center. Jesus.
Unknowing if the message was real or not, Captain Dahl sent the following message. Ed, confirm last message, please. Jason. Roughly a minute after, Cleveland air traffic controllers would inform Flight 93 of traffic, but just immediately after that, they heard intelligible sounds of possible screaming or struggle. This was the exact moment that Flight 93 was officially hijacked.
United 93, that traffic for you is 1 o'clock, 12 miles eastbound 370.
Negative contact, we're looking, United 93.
United 93 was now hijacked by the 4 terrorists armed with a bomb and box cutters. Two of the hijackers stood in the aisleway controlling the passengers, while the other two, including the hijacker pilot, took control of the plane and diverted it toward Washington, D.C. As the plane was hijacked, the passengers and crew made desperate phone calls to their families, friends, and officials on the ground to help relay information regarding on what has happened on their flight. But if you thought the country had already seen its worst, you would be dead wrong. At 9:37 a.m., horror struck once again. Just minutes after, Ben Sliney makes the biggest decision of his life and career.
I ordered all aircraft in the system to land at the nearest airport. At that point, we had over 4,000 aircraft airborne. I thought if everybody landed, whoever else was in the sky, well, then the military could deal with that.
But it's just too late for United 93. It's been hijacked and heading straight for Washington, D.C. As the passengers and crew continued making phone calls to their loved ones, Todd Beamer felt like he should do the same. He grabbed an airphone from behind his seat and attempted to call his wife, but for some odd reason, the call didn't go through, and was instead connected to a GTE airphone operator. Her name was Lisa Jefferson, an operator at the GTE airphone company. She later recalled what she and Todd talked about that day.
He told me that there were 3 people that had taken over the plane, 2 with knives and 1 with a bomb strapped around his waist with a red belt. The 2 with the knives had locked themselves into the cockpit. They had ordered everyone to sit down because the flight attendants were standing. One just happened to sit next to him.
As the passengers and crew talked to their loved ones, they realized what was happening with the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and realized that this was a suicide mission and they had to do something. Based on cell phone conversation details, Beamer teamed up with Jeremy Glick, Mark Bingham, and Tom Burnett Jr. to formulate a plan to take control of the plane from the hijackers. They were joined by several other passengers and crew members who also decided to storm the cockpit. Using hot water, a food cart, and brute strength as weapons, the passengers and crew prepared for the biggest fight of their lives. With the passengers and crew's assault on the cockpit just moments away, Todd Beamer had one final request for Lisa Jefferson. Together, they recited the Lord's Prayer along with the 23rd Psalm, in which Todd Beamer told her one last thing.
Then he told me, he said, in case I don't make it through this, would you please do me a favor and call my wife and my family and let them know how much I love them.
At 9:57 a.m., as Flight 93 soared over Pennsylvania and just about 15 to 20 minutes from his suspected target, Todd Beamer and the passengers and crew on United 93 went out on their faith. The passengers pushed, making their run toward the cockpit and the guy with the bomb, while Lisa Jefferson, still on the phone, heard everything. As the hijacker pilot Ziad Jarrah realized the situation, he began rocking the plane violently in an effort to disrupt the revolt and knock the passengers off balance. However, despite Jarrah's tries and him rocking the plane constantly, the passengers were able to regain their balance and control and continued running towards the cockpit. The hijacker with the bomb, now realizing he was in trouble, desperately tried defending himself, but in the end he stood no chance. He got knocked to the ground and was beaten up by the passengers and possibly even killed. The passengers and crew then used a food cart to break the cockpit door as a battering ram. They hit it over and over again, and as the plane veered off its course to Washington, D.C., the hijackers contemplated whether they should crash the plane or not. The passengers and crew finally broke into the cockpit, but as they entered, Jarrah did the unspeakable. At 10:03 a.m., traveling well over 500 miles per hour and about 6,000 to 7,000 gallons of U.S. fuel remaining, United 93 crashed into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The explosion created a massive fireball and caused debris to spread across 163 acres and about 8 miles. Sadly, despite the passengers and crew's best efforts to retake control of the plane, everyone on board, including the 4 hijackers, perished upon impact. A later investigation by the 9/11 Commission report determined that the U.S. military was unable to act in time, and that the passengers and crew were the last line of defense to prevent United 93 from reaching its intended target. In addition to the 42-minute delay by Flight 93 before it left the runway, the hijackers on that flight also delayed the hijacking significantly. They were supposed to hijack the flight within 15 minutes of takeoff, but waited 3 times longer, in which in addition to that, gave the passengers more time to understand the circumstances and plan a revolt. Had these 2 delays not had happened, it would have most likely crashed into the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. and caused both human, symbolic, and government destruction. Had the delays happened, though, and the passengers and crew not have revolted, it still would have crashed into its target, but most likely not caused any casualties rather than everyone on the plane, due to every federal building in America being evacuated after the Pentagon had been struck. It has been 24 years since the deadliest terrorist attack in history, and approximately 57 years today since Todd Beamer came into this world. As the country reeled with its biggest devastation they had ever seen, Americans comforted each other. Days following the attacks on 9/11, Lisa Beamer talks about how there were numerous people in both the White House and the U.S. Capitol, along with their parents, telling them thank you, as her husband and the passengers and crew on United 93 were the main reason why their lives were saved. Speaking of Lisa, she gave birth to her 3rd child on January 9th, 2002, and named her Morgan Kay. At the time of this video, she is currently 23 years old and will be 24 next year on January 9th, 2026. And speaking of women with the name Lisa, Lisa Jefferson in the end did fulfill Todd Beamer's promise and told his whole family, including his wife and kids, how much he truly loved them. And while Todd Beamer sadly lost his life in the crash, we are sure to never forget him and always remember him. Beamer's watch was recovered from the crash site and currently now says 10:03 a.m., the exact same time Flight 93 crashed into the empty field in Pennsylvania. Todd Beamer's human remains were also recovered from the crash site, and he is currently buried at Brainerd Cemetery in Cranberry, New Jersey. Along with the 39 other passengers and crew, Todd Beamer was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award in United States history. Todd Beamer's name is also prescribed both at Ground Zero in New York City and the Flight 93 National Memorial in Stony Creek Township, Somerset County, Pennsylvania. We also have Todd Beamer High School that opened in 2003 at Federal Way, Washington. And Todd Beamer's last words, "Let's roll," are now a symbolic phrase when it comes to Flight 93. In my previous documentary, where I said the passengers and crew on Flight 93 showed the exact definition on who Americans truly are, Todd Beamer and the passengers and crew on United Airlines Flight 93 also showed that not all heroes wear capes.
You ready?
Let's roll.